Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Our top story: the U.S. sending over 100 illegal Chinese nationals back to China on a charter flight. Beijing said it's willing to work with Trump on mass deportations. That's as record numbers of illegal Chinese have crossed into the U.S. A slew of reactions to Trump's decision to invite Chinese leader Xi to his inauguration. From China, the White House, and it appears Trump himself.
We'll see what happens, but we like to take little chances.
Despite strong opposition from some lawmakers, the Biden administration inks a renewed science pact with China. More on the concerns from lawmakers. And NATO's chief is urging the alliance to shift to a wartime mindset and spend much more money on defense. That's to prepare for potential war with Russia if it were to break out. The U.S. deported over 100 illegal Chinese immigrants on a charter flight Monday. It's the fourth repatriation flight to China in less than half a year. The Department of Homeland Security says its message to illegal immigrants is clear: do not believe the lies of the smugglers, and that those without legal basis to remain in the United States will be swiftly removed. The first removal flight happened in June, deporting 116 Chinese nationals. The second took off in October, removing over 130 Chinese nationals. In November, over 100 illegal Chinese immigrants were sent back. Still, the numbers are small compared to the amount of Chinese nationals that have crossed into the U.S. illegally. Over 38,000 Chinese nationals were apprehended in fiscal year 2024. An over 50% increase compared to the previous fiscal year. Most of them were single men. In fiscal year 2024, the U.S. deported over 700,000 illegal immigrants, sending them back to over 160 countries, ranging from China to Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and India. The DHS said it would continue to expand repatriation flight efforts. Meanwhile, China says it's willing to work with President-elect Trump on his mass deportation plan. That's according to a spokesperson for the Chinese embassy in the U.S. He told Newsweek that Beijing is working with the U.S. to crack down on illegal immigration. Beijing only started accepting illegal immigrants this June. The Chinese regime suspended the cooperation for 2 years, following a visit to Taiwan by then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Something to note, the Chinese regime is facing immense pressure, with Trump promising to levy 60% tariffs on Chinese goods. He's also proposed a 25% tariff on Mexico and Canada, urging them to stop the flow of illegal migrants into the U.S. Chinese leader Xi Jinping signaled on Thursday that he is willing to work with Trump to avoid further trade pressure. In a letter to the U.S.-China Business Council, Xi said the two countries should choose dialogue over confrontation. He added that he's willing to open up China's market for American companies. His statement contrasts rising fears among foreign companies operating in China. Beijing recently ramped up an anti-espionage law. Its vague terms have some concern that normal business operations in infogathering could now be treated as criminal. The law carries severe penalties, including life in prison. Will Xi Jinping become the first CCP leader to attend a U.S. presidential inauguration? The answer is probably not. China's Foreign Ministry Friday said no information to provide about Xi's response to the invitation. The Chinese embassy in Washington said the same. As for why, experts say Xi might see the task as too risky. That's given Trump's repeated threats of high tariffs on China and his decision to fill his cabinet with China hawks. Beyond that, the Chinese Communist Party has sought to challenge the U.S.-led world order. And experts say that if Xi attends the ceremony, the Chinese regime may consider it too much recognition of democracy. President-elect Trump commenting on his decision to invite certain people to the presidential inauguration. He didn't mention names, though his Thursday comments come the same day that it was confirmed that he invited Chinese leader Xi Jinping. Take a listen.
He seemed to reference this at the Times Person of the Year awards ceremony in New York on Thursday. Watch.
I was even thinking about inviting certain people to the inauguration, and some people said, wow, that's a little risky, isn't it? And I said, maybe it is. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But we like to take little chances.
It's unclear at this time if Xi Jinping is coming to the inauguration. Trump has vowed to take a strong stance against China, promising to increase tariffs. He took similar steps during his first term. He's also nominated many China hawks to his incoming administration. The White House National Security Advisor John Kirby said that this decision is one left to Trump, and he described the current administration's relations with China.
What is the White House reaction to President Xi being invited to President-elect Trump's inauguration next month?
Well, it's going to be up to President-elect Trump to decide who's going to sit with him there at the inauguration, who's going to be there. We've worked really hard on this most consequential of bilateral relationships. The President met with Xi Jinping a number of times, including recently, and as you know, at APEC. And we believe that as we get ready to turn over things to the Trump team, that we're turning over a U.S.-China relationship that is in better shape than the one we found it in. That doesn't mean that we don't have disagreements. We do, and we will, and I'm sure they will too. But we're working hard on this relationship, and we'll do that right to the end.
In his Person of the Year interview with Time magazine, Trump said he wants to, quote, move the schools back to the states. He added that he believes the U.S. would better compete with Norway, Denmark, and China on education that way. President Joe Biden just renewed a science cooperation pact with China on Friday.
The deal aims to boost the U.S. and China's cooperation in the scientific fields, including in monitoring natural disasters and diseases. The senior State Department official reassured today that this renewed pact covers a much narrower range compared to before, adding it protects critical technologies out of China's reach. But some lawmakers say China could get hands on U.S. know-how for advancing its military through this deal. They are also calling out Beijing for failing to provide sufficient data as requested, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Other lawmakers have sought to pressure the State Department to scrap the new deal. The deal has been renewed about every 5 years since it was first signed 45 years ago.
The Justice Department is asking a U.S. appeals court to reject an emergency motion by TikTok. The short video app is asking the judges to temporarily block a law that would require its Chinese parent company ByteDance to divest by January 19th or face a ban. The Justice Department said the court should not delay the law's effective date. The DOJ argues that Chinese control of TikTok poses a continuing threat to national security. The three-judge panel upheld the law last week. The decision puts TikTok's fate in the hands of President Joe Biden on whether to grant a 90-day extension, unless the Supreme Court reverses it. President-elect Donald Trump assumes office the next day on January 20th. Next, Russia's war with Ukraine will enter its third year in just 2 months, and the continued conflict directly impacts the security of NATO, the U.S.-led defense alliance. NATO Chief Mark Rutte sent out a warning on Thursday. NTD's Flora Hua is following the story. Flora, what can you tell us?
Yes, Tiff, that's right. NATO head Mark Rutte warns the war on Ukraine could expand to the alliance and says the allies aren't prepared. Take a listen.
We are not ready for what is coming our way in 4 to 5 years. It is time to shift to a wartime mindset and turbocharge our defense production and defense spending.
Rutte warned that the alliance will have to face Russia's long-term war plan. To defeat it, he's urging NATO member states to dig into their coffers and ramp up their defense budgets. He says future spending should far surpass the current target, 2% of each member's GDP. But according to NATO estimates, only 70% of the alliance's members can meet the 2% target this year. Incoming U.S. President Donald Trump suggests a 3% spending goal and has previously threatened to withdraw the U.S. from NATO if the alliance fails to increase defense spending. Beyond more funding for defense, the NATO chief also urged member states to consolidate their efforts and resources rather than engage in conflicts.
All right, Flora, thanks for that. A monument to victims of communism unveiled in Ottawa, Canada, as a way to remember history. The monument also serves as a call to uphold human rights and freedoms that are still denied to many around the world. Let's zoom in.
On December 12th, a monument to the victims of communism was unveiled in downtown Ottawa, Canada, as a new landmark of remembrance and hope.
This memorial stands as a solemn. It is the courage of those who resisted and the memory of those who've perished.
The Victims of Communism Memorial recognizes Canada's significance as a haven for those fleeing persecution and injustice, and creates a place for visitors to reflect on this history.
The number of human lives harmed by the tyranny of the Chinese Communist Party is far higher than the total number of wars. Under the tyranny of the CCP alone, the number of unnatural deaths is 96 million. All of us have the responsibility to continue to let the world know the evils of communist tyranny.
There are millions of victims of communism. We have fought hard. I feel happy. The next generation will know of our past.
Removing the poison of communist ideology or thinking is a very meaningful thing for us humans and the whole world.
The central element of the monument is the Arc of Memory. It's meant to demonstrate the resilience and strength of those who suffered under a communist regime. It is not only a tribute to the victims, but also a beacon of continued advocacy for human rights.
It is a testament to the value of our liberty and the value of all of our lives, past, present, and future. Let this monument inspire dialogue, education. Let it remind us that the freedoms that we enjoy today, hard-won.
NTD News, Canada.
Coming up, the UK banning an alleged Chinese spy from its borders. More on the person's ties to King Charles's younger brother and to the Chinese Communist Party. U.S. lawmakers are ringing alarm bells about a United Nations proposal, why they are concerned it could benefit China. And will Chinese leader Xi Jinping accept President-elect Trump's invitation to the inauguration ceremony? An expert says the invite puts Xi in a difficult position.
And if Xi comes, well, he looks like a supplicant. He looks like someone who's coming to pay homage to President Trump. And if he doesn't come, well, he looks churlish.
More on that after the break here on China in Focus. Welcome back to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. An alleged Chinese spy is banned from Britain over national security risks. A particular concern, his close relationship with both Prince Andrew, King Charles's younger brother, and the Chinese Communist Party. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson has more from London.
A Chinese businessman and suspected spy has been banned from the UK on national security grounds. The man, who was granted anonymity and is named only as H6, allegedly forged close ties with British Prince Andrew and was even authorized to seek investors on his behalf in China. A former junior civil servant in China, 50-year-old H6 was banned from entering Britain in March 2023. He appealed against this at the Special Immigration Appeals Commission, or SIAC, but the agency rejected his case in a written ruling on Thursday. The ruling said the ban on H6 came after the contents of his phone were downloaded when he was stopped under counter-terrorism laws at the UK border in 2021. It was revealed Prince Andrew had authorized him to set up an international financial initiative to engage with potential partners and investors in China. Documents on his phone suggested H6 deliberately obscured his links with the Chinese Communist Party and the United Front Work Departments. The United Front's Work Department is a network of groups that Chinese leader Xi Jinping has described as a magic weapon to bolster Beijing's reach abroad. In a statement, the Chinese embassy in London said some people in Britain were keen on making up all kinds of spy stories against China. The ruling said H6 had won an unusual degree of trust from a senior member of the royal family. It said Britain's Home Office was entitled to conclude that H6 had significant ties to the CCP and that there was a potential for him to leverage his relationship with Prince Andrew for the purposes of political interference. And hence the ruling concluded that the decision to ban H6 from the UK was proportionate and justified. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, London.
Beijing unveiling a new move to boost its sluggish economy. Several stimulus measures are being introduced during the Central Economic Work Conference in Beijing this week. Here's more.
China pledged to increase the budget deficit and issue more debt to local governments. That's to reduce their financial pressures. Local media have reported that many employees working for local governments across China have experienced long overdue salaries or cuts to their benefits. China also announced a much loosened monetary policy. Analysts say Beijing is hoping to counter President-elect Donald Trump's tariff hikes by weakening its own currency, the yuan. Other stimulus measures include reducing bank reserve requirements and cutting interest rates. Zooming out, the world's second largest economy, China is facing multiple challenges. That includes a severe real estate crisis, which led to heavier local government debts and a weak domestic consumption. Even exports, one of the pillar sectors of the economy relies on, will soon be hit by Trump's high tariffs. On top of that, the unemployment rate of young Chinese people topped 17%, according to state media. But experts argue the actual numbers are much higher. China's shrinking population is yet another blow to the economy. Many people died during the COVID-19 pandemic.
A group of U.S. lawmakers is sounding the alarm over a proposal from the United Nations. They say it could benefit China unfairly and sent a letter to President Biden on Wednesday about the issue.
The proposal was submitted last month. It was authored by Chu Dongyu. He's the Director General of the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, or FAO. Before joining the UN, he was China's Vice Minister of Agriculture. Lawmakers argue the proposal would give Chu more global influence. They claim it would allow China to dominate agricultural standards and policies. Since Chu took office in 2019, China's influence has expanded. Chinese appointees to leadership roles in the agency have nearly doubled. Lawmakers also accused the FAO of prioritizing China's interests over fairness. They say its policies favor Beijing while ignoring the global food crisis.
Responding to Russia's nuclear threats, an atomic bomb survivor and representative for this year's Nobel Peace Prize laureate is speaking out about nuclear weapons. Terumi Tanaka of the Atomic Bomb Survivors Group, Nihon Hidankyo, said on Wednesday that such weapons should never be allowed to be used again.
So for me, I believe that it is very dangerous today. First of all, within the current situation, Russia and its invasion of Ukraine, when we think about things from this, we can see that Russia as a nuclear superpower, and there have been direct public statements from the leadership in Russia saying that there is even a potential use of nuclear weapons. This is the kind of world that we are living in today, which is extremely dangerous.
Nihon Hidankyo is a grassroots movement of survivors of the 1945 nuclear bombings of Japanese cities Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It is campaigning for a world free of nuclear weapons using witness testimony. Tanaka also said Russian President Vladimir Putin did not truly understand the destructive power of nuclear weapons. He was referring to threats made by Putin to use nuclear weapons if necessary to counter what they see as an aggressive and hostile West. Tanaka, along with two other co-chairs, accepted the Nobel Peace Prize at a ceremony held at Oslo City Hall yesterday.
South Korea's opposition parties have submitted a new impeachment motion against President Yoon Suk-yeol. The move follows his short-lived martial law decree last week. The motion will be put to a vote on Saturday. A South Korean National Assembly official confirmed to lawmakers on Friday that the new motion had been submitted. Yoon's short-lived martial law declaration has generated political chaos and large protests calling for him to quit. Martial law lasted only 6 hours last week. Yoon was forced to lift it after the National Assembly unanimously voted it down. An earlier attempt to impeach Yoon failed, with most lawmakers from Yoon's party boycotting the vote. President-elect Trump has invited Chinese regime leader Xi Jinping to his inauguration. NTD's Kevin Hogan discussed the unprecedented invite with retired Marine Colonel Grant Newsham. He is a senior fellow at the Center for Security Policy and the author of When China Attacks.
Good morning to you, Colonel Newsham. So what's he hoping to gain from inviting the CCP leader Xi Jinping to his inauguration ceremony?
Well, he's trying to sort of flip the script and give himself some advantage over Xi Jinping, over the PRC. And that's what this does. You know, he's invited Xi Jinping, apparently, and if Xi comes, well, he looks like a supplicant. He looks like someone who's coming to pay homage to President Trump. Xi would find himself in the greatest democracy ever, appearing to be one of the celebrants, or certainly somebody showing respect And if Xi does come, well, he can't claim that Donald Trump is trying, and America is trying to contain China, contain China's rise. So this is pretty much a sort of a lose-lose for Xi Jinping. And if he doesn't come, well, he looks churlish. He looks like he's sort of declined a very good faith sort of welcome to the United States, a good faith invitation. And as I said, there's not much for Xi Jinping to be gained from this. He's been put into a difficult position.
Understood, Colonel Newsham, and certainly there will be some China hawks in attendance. For example, Trump's pick to head the State Department, Senator Marco Rubio. Now, what are the effects of keeping an open dialogue with entities like the Chinese Communist Party who are adversarial to the United States?
Well, engagement for engagement's sake doesn't really get you anywhere. You have to look at the results of that. It really is an American conceit that if we can just talk to somebody, no matter how bad they are, we can work out our problems, hash them out, and become friends. So that seems to be in the American character. In other words, we can't keep our mouths shut. But when dealing with a regime like the People's Republic of China, like the Chinese Communist Party, you shouldn't appear in too big an effort to talk or to reach a deal. And the Chinese will play that for all it's worth if you do. But rather, if the Chinese Communist Party the PRC has something to talk about with us, we'll let them come first. Put them in the position of having to come and request something from us. Instead, it's the U.S. side for too long, except during the previous Trump administration, has been scurrying around, begging to talk to the PRC, like chasing after somebody you want to go out onto a date with, and offering them presents and saying, please talk to me. Well, who's got the advantage in that kind of a relationship? But that's how we've been.
Very interesting, Colonel Newsham. And the Stimson Center's director of its China program, Yun Sun, he says that Xi will likely not attend because the guest list is too risky. And he points to Taiwan's main diplomat attending President Biden's inauguration ceremony. So what are the chances of Xi attending given that?
I'd be surprised if he came. And that is a good point, because Xi comes and he considers him the greatest man on earth, and he finds himself in the audience watching this. I don't think he's going to show up. And keep in mind that this sort of treatment by the Chinese of their leaders is not unprecedented. When George H.W. Bush went to the Olympics, for example, he was sitting down in the hot, humid sun, while the Chinese Communist Party elites were up in the VIP boxes in the stadium. And I think Xi doesn't want to experience the kind of treatment that they've given to others.
Well, thank you for this insight into these international affairs. Retired Marine Colonel Grant Newsham, Senior Fellow at the Center for Security Policy.
Well, thank you for having me.
That's all for today's China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. If you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at chinainfocus@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. For round-the-clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. Thanks for watching. See you soon.